This is a work session on the ML&P rate relief request. And let's go around the room, starting with myself, Jennifer Johnson, Assembly.
Ernie Hall, Assembly.
Amy Dombrowski, Assembly.
Chuck Steele, Assembly.
Elmy Gray Johnson.
Patrick Flynn. And in the back room I saw Paul and Dick.
Got Mr. Hahnemann and Mr. Carney both here. And could each of you introduce yourselves around the table and then start the presentation?
Ronnie Dent with Municipal Light and Power.
Anna Henderson, Municipal Light and Power.
Rick Miller, ML&P.
Jim Bosey, Municipal Light and Power. Okay, thank you. Shouldn't take very long. Losing money if we don't use this. Determining utility rates, which is page 2 in your handout. Revenue requirement studies. Annually, we take a look at our financial position, just future costs, determine what our rates are adequately covering. What we do, we are rate-based, rate of return utilities. Some utilities are what's called tier utilities. Once we suspect a rate adjustment is necessary, as we did a couple of years ago and went for a rate case in 2012, once those studies are complete or nearly complete, we go through an approval process. My staff, then the Electric Commission of the ML&P, MOA administration, and then the Anchorage Assembly, and finally our rates are determined by the Regulatory Commission of Alaska, a 5-member board appointed by the governor. Currently, we plan to file an across-the-board rate relief request with the RCA following Assembly approval based on our 2012 data. As you recall, in 2012, some of you, because of our 2011 test year revenue requirement, we showed we had about a $7 million revenue deficiency because SPP was not operational in 2011. In fact, we went live more than a year outside the 2011 test year. Test year is you have to close your year, test what your revenue requirements, what your costs were, and then you do your study, and then you do your rate design, and then that study in 2011 data caused us to ask for about a 9.72 rate increase for those who were here. In demand and energy charge, a 6% increase overall because the demand and energy charge is only a piece of your bill. The filing has been minimal with the rate increase we requested over the life of our legacy equipment, that is the equipment that's 35 and 40 years old. We've now started the process of installing cleaner, more efficient, but more importantly, less maintenance intensive equipment. An analogy is, 1975 Chevy is less expensive over the years than buying a new car, but eventually, because of maintenance and fuel costs, you're going to replace that vehicle. I have a 1990 Ford 150. It's good for going to the dump, going to Costco, going to a few things, but I couldn't drive it to Wasilla every day and be dependable. We have a 4 nines in reliability quotient, and keeping that requires us to make sizable investments. In fact, in time it was $470 million over a 7-year period, which is probably the largest thing that we've ever done as a utility, but utilities generally make large investments about every 30 years because they're prime equipment. Basically, you have to replace, or over 20 years if you're not a generating utility, because all of your distribution equipment starts wearing out in about 20 to 22 years. Some of it lasts 30, but the way they build it today, 22 to 25 years is the life of distribution equipment. On page 4 is our current rate comparison. Our residential rates at $68.98, as you see, compares favorably with the other utilities surrounding us. We're all doing basically the same thing, investing over $1 billion collectively for our new equipment that is necessary in order to serve our customers for the next 25 to 30 years. General service is small, general service large at primary voltage is considered medium, and then our large is basically in the range of about 254,000 kilowatt hours.
Don't pay any attention to us.
Huh?
Don't pay any attention.
Oh, I won't pay attention.
Yeah,
I thought somebody raised a hand.
Actually, you want questions during your presentation?
You know, you can, but I do have a page that says questions afterwards.
Okay.
And that's probably
Then-
best.
then
It
why
relates
because-
to page 4, Jim. Relates to page 4.
Okay.
How much of the town do you guys service?
I
In
serve.
other words, where do you stop at? Tudor or 15th or where?
It's a 20-mile, basically almost square service territory. It starts here, goes out to the tracks, into Spenard, Arctic, back to Arctic, down to Tudor, straight up Tudor east to Boniface. At Boniface, we make a left turn and go all the way to the highway, and we take care of everything on the other side of the highway, all the way to our plant. And that includes Staccato Mall, and what we do for basically wholesale power, we serve all of the military, both J-Bear, Fort Rich, and Elmendorf on 2 separate contracts, and the Fort Rich contract has Doyon supplying them power out of our solid waste services, trash to gas project.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Madam Chair.
The revenue study using the 2012 test year indicated ML&P should request a 31.52% increase to its permanent rates for demand and energy. Because demand and energy are just a portion of the total bill, the average customer total bill will increase 22% over the 18-month process. Page 6. The proposed 2013 request, as you can see, our interim demand increases 24%. Phase 1 demand and energy charges remain at the 2012 interim rates, made possible by a $5.5 million gas fund transfer that we're asking the RCA to approve, and that's taking money from our gas purchase account, reducing the rate shock, and in order to keep from having a big rate increase overall, it basically dampens it over that 18-month period of time. The Phase 1 permanent rates will be based on the 2012 revenue requirement reduced by $5 million. If approved, this would result in a phased approach over 2 years to achieve the full permanent requested rate relief of $24 million. As you can see on page 7, that's what the rate would go up to. That's about $11 increase over current. And if you flip to page 8, that represents another $3, which is what that $5 is buffered at. You end up with $11 in 1 year, and then in 2015, you get the full rate increase probably by October, November of 2015. Page 9 is a summary. The chart shows a closer look at our revenue requirement. The revenue requirement as determined by the 2012 test year, which included SPP, is $105 million. And the test year revenue we're proposing under Phase 1 is recover $81 million of that. And with the $5 million, it reduces how much of that actually goes to the customer. Revenue efficiency is $24 million in both interim and proposed, but the revenue relief, as you can see, is $18 million in Phase 1 and $24 million total over this year's rates in Phase 2. Moving to page 10, the source of this, as you can see, SPP, the joint plant that we built with Chugach Electric and ML&P, of which we own 30% of. Total cost of that project is with financing is about $127 million, $111 million without financing. So it did come in basically on budget and basically in accordance with the timing that they projected It was supposed to be online in June. It actually came online at the end of January 2013 at 11:59 p.m. All other costs is about $4.5 million is shown there in the pie chart. Page 11, this is what I was speaking of at the beginning, a revenue requirement through time. The green line represents that rate-based rate of return, reduces the shock to the customer over a 30 to 60 year period. And the red line is basically the charge, and the base rate actual cost, as you can see. The blue line basically tells you what happens with depreciation. I know we've gone round and round about depreciation here in the city, but depreciation is a big part of our rate case, and what happens to the customer's bill, as you will imagine, as we depreciate the asset, we reduce those charges over time. The gas cost and the other charges continue to go. So what the green line represents is that's what's happening to your revenue over that same period of time without the immediate huge rate shock because we finance this over a 30-year period of time. Page 12 is a visual look at where we compare to the other utilities. Rates are comparable at $83 will still be about $1 less than $1 over CEA, and $2 less almost than MEA, HEA. Both of those utilities, both CEA and MEA, who are basically part of Anchorage, will have rate cases going, and as soon as HEA falls off as a customer of CEA, they will either have to further increase their rates or cut a lot of costs out of their system. I think that they're going to file a rate case because they have been phoning Anna asking how much is our rate case and when is it going to be filed. 2 calls in the last 2 days.
One this week and one about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So in summary, rate relief primarily for SPP, reliability, safety, efficiency, maintains our bond market confidence in ML&P, critical to fund our future CIP programs, and ML&P's rates remain competitive. We have a Fitch rating of A+, which we've maintained, and an S&P rating of A+, which we've maintained. Different people will say you should go for a higher rating. What a higher rating does is you have to have higher reserves, and it basically keeps you from spending capital because the rating agencies always want you to have that $30 or $40 million in the bank. We've got more than that in the bank, but it's restricted. 75, 80, yeah, in that range. So having that amount keeps our rating up, and the rating agencies understand that that's restricted fund, but it helps us drill wells and do other things for fuel cost modification going forward. With that, questions?
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Kodier, staff, for your presentation. And now I understand why you wanted questions at the end of the presentation, because my questions have been answered. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Paul?
Okay, couple of things. What outcome or what projections would be if the hydroelectric project came online, and what impact would that be for our utility event?
Through the chair, some of the members, we think that project's going to take another 12 years. I met with the state on the Watano project, if that's the one you're talking about. There's 2 projects on the table. One is an expansion by about 12 to 18% of Bradley Lake, getting more water in the lake. But the big project is going to be about 600 megawatts. It would come on after these assets have been in play for 15 years or so. And with our depreciation, if we bought 40 to 60 megawatts of that at, let's say, 10 cents, we would be in line with what you may want to do in order to continue to have that reliability. And the thing about having that Watana come in, that's a flat line, that once you sign up for that and the state does a 50-year financing, which we're asking them to do, and do 50 to 60% buy down of the debt, then that would allow you to go out for the next 30, 40 years with pretty good rates. And to give you an example of what that means to our rate customers, we bought into Eklutna. That's $0.015 power, besides what I make on selling water to AWWU and warming their water up in the process. But our power out of Bradley Lake is 4.5, 5.5 cents, and that's now about 16, 17 years old, basically almost. So that's flatline out. And so bringing on hydro reduces your fuel cost, although it increases your cost because you're paying for that capital. And that's why it's important that I told the folks that they have to get the state to buy down at least half of that, because the deal on Bradley was 50-50. 50% grant, and we would pay for it over 50 years.
And that brings me to the next question, and I know that in looking at the rates here at GDA and MEA and all that, some have coal-fired plants and some have, I think, fuel oil in some cases. Different than natural gas, obviously expenses are greater, which I'm assuming is why their rates are much higher. What about state appropriations? How would that factor into our rate if we were to get, I'm guessing, rate relief? I don't know what that would look like. I know that we get clean water funds for water improvements and things of that nature. I'm guessing rate relief, if it looks like we're getting a pretty high pinch, and as you know, I mean, we're the ones, and I'm sure you'll get them too, because you have the utility that sends the bills out. And we're the ones that are going to get the questions as to why did my bill go up 31%, another third of the bill.
22%.
Excuse me?
Actually, 22, 19
Well,
to 22%.
Let's go out then a couple of years. It shows 31.
No, that is total demand in energy, but if you look at the total bill, then the impact on the total customer is
Okay, then a fourth. Let's go up a fourth.
Yeah,
Roughly.
yeah, roughly. The answer to that question is, number one, we as a utility have not asked for state help on things. We'll probably get into that as part of our capital budget going forward, so I don't want to go into that now. We may, like some of the other utilities, ask for some relief in order to do some things that we know we have to do, but probably stretches beyond what we need to do. And part of that's going to revolves around keeping backup diesel, which is very, very expensive and becoming more expensive next year and the following year. Also, as a municipally owned utility, generally anytime we've asked for money, and even if it's part of the other group, the legislators around the state split a pie. And Anchorage gets so much money based on population. And anytime I'm in that kitty, that means for $6, $10, or $15 million, that may mean $6 to $10 million that will not be given to general government for its necessary pieces of taking care of the people. And that's probably the best answer I can give to you about that. With an A+ rating and our ability to fund our capital program and to have rate-based rate of return, not having state help, even though we're taking a big gulp and it will cause some indigestion for the next 2 or 3 years. After that, I think it's still a wonderful utility. We've made some really big changes over the last 10 years. We'll have basically all new generation equipment, all new distribution equipment. We'll continue to underground and still deliver that 4 nines of reliability to the business community, the military, hospitals, and the education community. Those are our primary customers. In fact, our top 10 customers, ConocoPhillips and BP, dropped below 10.
Madam Chair, with your indulgence, a moment on the soapbox.
What, from you?
I draw my colleagues' attention to slides 4, 7, 8, and 12. Pick any one of them. You will note 5 different utilities providing service to a population of approximately 500,000 people. That's a district in any real utility. And so, Mr. Honeman, to your question, state support, I hope to God that if the state steps in to help with capital, the requirement is we become one utility. This is ridiculous. I love our utility, Jim does a great job, but it's outrageous. And not that they're not good people, but there are 5 gyms, 5 of everybody else he's got on his staff on the regulatory side running around would probably be about 2. No offense.
It helps with the law.
What's that?
Helps the law practice.
Yeah, helps the law practice.
Summer co-ops.
So, oh, and actually, I will also note it omits the 6th utility owned by the city of Missouri.
So does that mean you're going to bring forward an ordinance to sell the utility? Excuse me, Madam Chair.
I'm done.
Any other questions?
Madam Chair, let me answer, since I go way, way back. The administration over the last few years have looked at doing that. There are a lot of years of work, and you have to declare war against the valley to make something like that happen. I was an Air Force guy. I've done my military time. Don't intend to go to war again if I can. I have
Too close
been
for
a
retirement.
unifier for all the utilities. We've not been at war with MEA, CEA, or any of them in the 10 years that I've been in this spot. That declares war to make that happen. So, I agree with you. The state can come in and do this, but they would have to buy out the equity of the city in this utility and buy out the equity in all the co-ops. And, I told one of the folks who came in and took a look at this one, and it was McKinsey, the one out of Australia.
Yes, Mackenzie.
Mackenzie.
Macquarie.
Macquarie, and they came in twice over the last 10 years. And they asked me would I manage it if they did it. I said, you have to declare the war, pay me a lot of money to go back to be a military guy again, but it can be done. It takes money. And Macquarie was not interested in pursuing all of what you talked about. They just wanted 1 or 2 pieces of that they would go for. So that's the problem of doing that. As I said, I'm not interested in going back to war. I thought we would put our armaments down. So.
Paul?
Yeah, and I know you guys are doing projections, and you really can't predict through the other utilities and such, but I'm going to have to go back to my baseline question as response, and I recognize, of course, infrastructure aging and up to date and technology cheaper, I guess, long run. I mean, let's face it, if you got to keep paying for maintenance and such an old equipment. My concern is as Patrick said, go to all these pages, and again, you're probably not going to be able to project much for them. You're just guesstimating, I guess, and putting a number in there. But if you notice that from page 4 all the way back, the assumptions on CEA all the way over from the second column over to the right stay the same, and only ours goes up. And of course, that's the reason is because I'm sure you're only focused on what we're
Yes.
So
I don't
you have no idea
what
what
they
their
do.
cost is.
I know what they have to do.
Right.
I don't know when they're going to do it and how much it is.
And that's my concern is that, obviously when I'm talking to people, folks in our neighborhood, they are concerned about the cost of the utilities and just as much, if not more so, on water and wastewater, because I had one lady that was absolutely livid that it would go up by pennies or go down by pennies, and it was just, every bill seemed different. And whereas in the quote-unquote old days, it was pretty much flat. You could pretty much bank a check and know that it's going to be the same, whatever it is. And it's because of all the rate adjustments and such. I know the regulatory side of it and all that seems to be, and I try to explain that to them, but I guess that's my challenge is I'm asking you as a utility to help us to be able to explain this in a better way, probably in lay terms. The only thing I can come up with is, look, we've got aging infrastructure and we're having to replace things, and costs today are more expensive than costs in the past.
Through the chair, some of the member of Huntman. We did probably 5-6 years of studies, George, doing IRPs over time. My commissioners are all here. They've been through this, chomping through it over time. We studied and saw how expensive it would be to keep the old equipment that's 35, 40 years old, 50-year technology, and the expense of continuing to try to keep it repaired with baling wire, and because some of the equipment is not manufactured anywhere in the world. Our Unit 7, which is a barn burner of a unit, saves us a lot of money because it's, produces steam, is the longest running frame 7 built by GE, more hours on it than anyone in the whole world. That's how good it's been for us. And we basically spend money as necessary to keep it as our prime. But I made decisions yesterday about what we're going to do going forward, and pieces and parts of that system will no longer be maintained in the way we have for the last 15 to 20 years. We're going to keep it spare, but it's going to cost money to keep the old equipment running at full tilt, like my Ford 150. The other piece is that I intend, with your help, to work with our total base, commercial, residential, about how to conserve. We have not done enough in this community, even with Dan Fauski's best help, in working with folks to help them do energy conservation. I have customers who have cut their costs by 40% by taking care, and this is total utility bill, including gas and electric, 40% based on rehabbing, redoing windows, doors, heating systems, lighting. It is possible to do that. I talked to the Fifth Avenue Mall new director. He wanted to know, and he says, well, my management doesn't want to spend any money. I said, well, let me tell you where your rates are getting ready to go, because I'm going to talk to the assembly on Friday. And if you want me to talk to your ownership, and they come to town, Simon does a lot of things, I am willing to do that, because this rate increase will make all of your payouts 3, 5, or 7 years. If you can't make that kind of investment, then they're going to pay these higher costs. So, like we're conserving by building new equipment, all of our customers can do likewise.
Ms. Gray Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Paul had a good point that made me think of a question I wanted to ask in terms of, when you see your bill, your own bill with your ML&P, or maybe any other utility in your constituency and the COPA, sometimes it's negative or positive. How does that work? The cost of power adjustment.
The cost of power adjustment, through the chair, the cost of power adjustment is based basically on all fuel. And so it's the price of the gas as priced by us and priced by others that we buy gas from. You approved $155 million worth of gas over the next 6 years for us. Those prices, when they come in increments, will show up in COPA. And that's where it is. But realize that by 2018, we'll be paying for the gas bill. It's been amazing how much money this utility and this city has made because of buying that gas field 17 years ago.
So if I can follow up, Madam Chair. So the COPA is because it's the gas part.
Yes, it's fuel costs,
So it's
including buying power from
Right.
Bradley Lake.
Right, so sometimes it's a debit or a credit on your bill.
Yes.
So is it based on the previous monthly service and what happens in that period? That's,
Go ahead.
because I understand COPA, but I'm trying to understand, when you look at your bill and it's a debit and credit sometimes, yes.
Through the chair, Assembly Member L.P. Gray Jackson. The other thing that COPA does include is the margins on the sales and resell. We sell power up to Fairbanks, and last year we sold about $16.5 million. There were $4 million of margins or profits on those sales. That goes, we don't get to keep any of those margins. That goes back to the customer through the COPA. That's one of the reasons it can become negative. It covers like 3 quarters too. We file a COPA every quarter, 45 days before the quarter starts. If we over-earn, we have to pay that back. If we under-earn, we get to recover that in a future COPA rate. It also includes some of the cost of SINGSA that's down. There's natural gas storage, where we have 0.6 billion cubic feet of gas. It includes about $150,000 a month of that expense. That's for redundancy, or if we have issues with getting gas, we have that gas stored.
Thank
Use
you.
that gas.
Yeah, thank you. That's pretty clear. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, this is one final thing. As we go into our budget session in the fall, one of the things I'd ask for this session that isn't here are your cost centers, because as we're looking at the capital program and your operating program and discussing as far as aging, I really would like to have a breakdown of your cost centers, and that would be helpful in the budget. Thank you. Over.